everybody. The talk today this session is going to be on technology to manage dairy cows in pasture and on TMR herds. My name is Nigel. I'm a dairy farmer, and I farm on the southern tip of Africa, which, if you look at that screen, is 7,400 kilometers from Buenos Aires. And we also have 3,400 kilometers from the South Pole. So we're right in the middle of nowhere. And to give you more perspective, we farm in the southern part of South Africa, about 600 kilometers east of Cape Town, on a narrow coastal strip, which is basically pasture-based. South Africa has many TMR herds, which are based in Cape Town and in the interior up near Pretoria. But the area where we farm in is predominantly pasture. So this is a shot of our farm, a mountain range at the top end of the farm. As you can see, it's pasture farming, and we have a very temperate climate. We never get frost, and we never drop below zero, and our rainfall is about 1,000 millimeters a year. This is the view that we have from the bottom end of the farm. And looking straight down, if you had to look further across, you would probably see Antarctica, if you could see that far. So that means that we're exposed to all the storms that come across from the roaring 40s. So, which also brings us relief in that we've generally got constant wind, which is quite important to keep cows cool. So after many years of dairy farming, I've sort of like narrowed things down to 5 rules of dairy farming, which I think are the most important things when you dairy farm. Doesn't matter where you are and how you farm and what method you use, whether you've got tie stalls or you've got TMR or you've got pasture farming. So one of the main things is that what I've realized is you have to manage and feed your cows individually. And that's irrespective of whether you're milking 10 cows or 10,000 cows. And the only way you can really do that effectively is with technology. So also the transition period, in other words, the dry period, I always think that a cow's lactation starts, the next lactation starts the day you dry her off. And that dry period is a crucial period, especially the last 4 weeks of the dry period, which we call the transition period. It's very, very important to keep the cows well fed, and for cows to gain weight coming up to calving, because most of the fetal growth takes place in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So cows have to gain weight, otherwise they are going backwards. And the idea, what we try and do, is to calve our cows at a body condition score of 3.25 on the standard European scale, an American scale. So, as I said, dry cows need to increase weight to maintain body condition score. And I see this on many farms all over the world, that guys on pasture farms, they chase the dry cows out to the furthest pasture and they forget about them. And those cows lose weight often. The opposite is often true in TMR herds, where the cows are overfed and then they end up calving down to fat. And then you've got problems with fatty liver syndrome and stuff like that. And importantly, you need to manage your heifers to AI them at about 58% of their adult mass at 14 months of age. And the way we calculate this out is that we know that at 180 days of age, is 6 months, Holstein heifers will typically weigh about 30 to 35% of their adult mass. So we then can calculate out what the adult mass is going to be and try and inseminate them at 58% of adult mass, not before 14 months. We also went down the route of AIing them too early, because you want to get them into milk as early as possible. And heifers that are calving at 22 months do not perform well enough because they are not mature enough. And I'm referring to Holstein animals in this talk. Jerseys are obviously slightly different. So our effort target weight is 6 months is 180 kilos plus birth weight. So as this all indicates is that dairy farming is a very integrated management challenge. And I mean, where we used to always believe that the three main pillars is fertility, nutrition, and yield, where nutrition governs fertility and yield, which is the important part, everything is interconnected in dairy farming. And if your embryo isn't well looked after, you're going to have a weak calf, you're going to have a weak cow eventually. And it's just so important to look at it holistically. And those animals must never, ever be stressed or shortchanged in their life cycle, from conception through to leaving the farm. So everything is connected. So this is a drone view of our farm. To the right at the back there, you can see that's the Indian Ocean. Down at the bottom over here, where these big silos are, that's our dairy. It's a 60-point rotary parlour. It's about 15 years old now. In front of the dairy, we have a unloading facility. Sorry, let me just go back up again. We have a unloading facility for unloading maize in bulk. We buy all our maize and soya on the futures market, so we bring it just in time. And then the other silo would be, we feed a mineral pellet, which is balanced for our cows' requirements. We do liver biopsies and blood samples on a regular basis to make sure that the mineral status of the cows is up at NRC standards. And we use all organic minerals, except that we add zinc oxide into the ration, because as on all pasture farms in the world, we are challenged by facial eczema at certain times of the year with funguses in the grass. So in the background there, you can see there's a big center pivot there with our maize on there. We plant a quarter of the farm to maize every year, and that's a rotation, so it's a 4-year rotation. And we do that because on intensive pasture farms, the potassium buildup in the soil, it can be quite an issue over time. And so what we do is we plant maize, and then we don't fertilize the maize with potassium. And we manage to bring down our potassium levels in our soils from before planting from over 300 parts per million down to about 150 parts per million for the next cycle. As a matter of interest, the organic matter in these soils is the carbon percentage is over 6%. So they're very well fertilized soils, and that's creates its own challenges, because you also create ideal conditions for parasites like liver fluke and stuff like that. So in front of the dairy, waiting to come in there is a herd of milking cows waiting to go through. And at the back end of the dairy on the seaward side is what we call a post parlour. It's a feeding area with 1 meter crib space per cow, and we will feed supplements there. Because this farm we have 240 hectares under pastures. And as I said, we plant 40 hectares of maize every year. We plant 60 hectares of maize. That's what I was trying to, 60 hectares of maize we planted from this last year. We used to plant 40. So 60 hectares of maize takes a quarter of the farm out. So we have to supplement the cows because there's obviously not enough grass. We milk generally 1,000 cows, and we have 1,900 animals, 18 to 1,900 animals on the farm. So we supplement them with maize silage, apple pulp, lucerne, which we bring in from another farm that we have in the desert areas, and then cotton seed and stuff like that. We balance the cow's feed weekly according to the amount of pasture which is available. So as I said, that's the dairy with the big maize silos over there, and then soya silos. So inside the dairy, at the back end, is the feed head. This is where the cows are fed in parlour, and that the beauty of a rotary parlour is that all cows pass the same point. So you only need one feeding station. So we have got a choice of 4 feeds here that we can feed. And that is balanced in front of the cow for each individual cow. So maize, soya, and minerals are fed separately there. And we also bring our close-up cows onto the table, and they get anionic salts on the table there once a day. The ration is balanced according to the cow's requirements. So, for example, at the moment on our pastures, there's enough protein in the ration for, say, 25, 28 liters of energy-corrected milk. So the cows below that will not receive soya, and the cows above that will receive soya. The soya is the most expensive ingredient that we do feed. So inside the parlour, also you can see below the numbers there, the milk meter, and next to the milk meter is an Affy lab, which measures butterfat, protein, lactose in the milk. Every single milking, every day, every cow. And they are the new version, with the new software we're using, version 5.5. These Affy labs are super accurate. And they're really easy to calibrate because we just enter the data that we get back from the milk factory, and then they calibrate, and we use that to energy correct the cow's milk to a 4% fat and a 3.3% protein, so that all cows are fed according to what they actually their energy that they require according to the milk and the butterfat and the protein and the rest of it. So this is our feed allocation report at the moment, and you can see that's the ECM is the one heading at the top there, which is energy corrected milk. And over here, I've arranged it on energy corrected milk as a percentage of body weight. And because no 2 cows are the same, and in any herd, you will find that the lightest cow is half the weight of the heaviest cow in the herd, if not more. So you can't feed them the same. So we feed them as energy-corrected milk production as a percentage of body weight, which then corrects their feeding according to their requirements. So a big cow of 700 kilograms can obviously eat a lot more concentrates than a small cow of 400 kilograms. So there's a natural limitation in here to the amount of feed that they can be allocated, which also counteracts acidosis and SARA very, very effectively. So looking at the bottom of the table over here, you can see these daily yields over here. We now have, I did this about a month ago, we were just starting to calve. We now have cows, we've got 4 cows that are over 60 kilos of milk, and the ECM is over 50. So you'll see the amount of concentrates that they've been fed. But what is highlighted here is these 2 cows, they're both on roughly the 7.5% of their body weight in ECM. The one cow is 550 kilos, the other cow is 580. But you can see the production difference. The one is on 43, the one is on 46. And the concentrates, you can see the lower producing one is on, the cow that's producing the high amount of milk, but she's also on 7.5%, would be 11.3 kilos of concentrates, and the other one 12.1. So by doing this, we've managed to increase our butterfat in our herd quite dramatically. Last year we were battling at about a 3.5% fat. We're now on a 4% fat with a higher production level. So concentrates are allocated as a percentage of body weight according to ECM, energy corrected milk, as a percentage of body weight, body condition score, lactation number, and stage of lactation. And this is all automated. What we do is we do body condition score every time the vet comes, and any cows that come to the vet, whether it's for post-calving or for pregnancy diagnosis or for pregnancy confirmation, they will be body condition score and the data gets entered. The rest of it is all calculated by that program. Because this is the kicker as well. As I said, that in any herd, your lightest cow will be half the weight of your heaviest cow. So it is with butterfat. You can see in our herd at this stage, the lowest cow, the lowest butterfat was 2.85%, and the cow's highest butterfat was 5.5%. So you can't feed those cows the same because butterfat requires a lot of energy, as does protein. So we correct it. So our herd milk at the moment, or this was about 2 months ago, at the moment it's 8,860 kilos of milk a cow. And we peak in at day 43 and at 34 kilos of milk per cow. Remember, this is on a pasture system. These cows are walking 6 kilometers a day. So that's quite a distance they've got to walk. So in terms of averages, most pasture herds will be sitting on about 5,500 kilos of milk. So by feeding cows individually the way we do and using the technology available, we are able to maximize output as far as we can on the cows. We can never meet the genetic potential of these cows, but we can at least optimize the genetic potential. And very importantly, cows, the post-calving weight of cows. Cows calve in post-calving weight, and their dry-off weight should be about the same. So then you know that they're calving down and they're drying off at roughly the same body condition score. So our results are ECM, if I compare in last year, April, milk production, because the days in milk, the amount of cows we were milking, everything is roughly the same. Our ECM is up about 9% a cow, 9%, and our concentrates are down by 11%. So you can imagine that's quite a saving on a big herd, and it's quite a boost of income in the income per cow. And our body weight is better than what it was last year, much better. And I think that's because there's a lot less cows, or there are no cows with subacute ruminal acidosis. So it's pretty efficient. So these are some of the cows on pasture, one of the herds. This is the first lactation herd. We always show them because they've got the nicest udders. The collar around that cow's neck is the new Affy collar, which so it's measuring rumination, chewing time, and then obviously heat indicator on the cow. And they have been a big boon on our farm, because we put them in on September last year, just before our breeding season, because we are on pasture. We have sort of like seasonal calving, 2 seasons a year. And we've really, they're paying for themselves in a big way. Firstly, we haven't lost a single one, because when we had pedometers on the feet, we used to lose pedometers. No matter what we did, we'd lose 3 or 4 pedometers a month. So these collars don't get lost. That's a big thing. The other thing is the rumination data that we get off that is worth a lot, because not only on a herd basis, you see that the cows, or on a group basis, you see that the rumination in the group and the chewing time is good, but also to pick up disease. And one of the things we pick up, because you do get it on, depending if there's adverse weather conditions, we will sometimes pick up cows with a twisted gut. Like a left displaced abomasum or a right displaced abomasum if they late in lactation. And we're able to identify those cows very quickly because the rumination drops to 0, obviously. So you can get the cow, do an emergency slaughter on the cow before she dies on the farm. And that's quite handy. The other thing is, of course, that the rumination will tell you, the rumination combined with conductivity, which we pick up from the milk meters. A low conductivity and a low rumination is an indicator of a digestive upset in that cow of note. And then you can take preventive remedial action, like dosing with molasses, and we use a product called Rumix, which quickly sorts the cow Chewing time is also quite an important thing, because what we notice is when cows are coming up onto heat, their chewing time increases dramatically. So these are another shot of these cows. So with heat indicators, these spikes over here, with the FE collars, they show up heat much better than what the pedometers did, in my opinion. And I can show you why they're paying for themselves, and I'll tell you why. So not only is it showing us heat, but it's giving us a fertility window. In other words, it's telling us when to AI. And by doing that, our timing of insemination is better according to the ovulation of the cow. And interestingly, we got results back this morning from this last breeding season, where our herd is compared to about another 70 or 80 herds in South Africa with a consultant. And specifically, our fertility has always never been bad, but our fertility in our older cows has shot up now, gone really high. And I think it's because of the timing of insemination that is giving us that we inseminated these cows at a better time. So those spikes are obviously the heats. The spike here at the end here on the right-hand side, that was an event that took place where there was a fungus overload on the pastures, and that's called facial eczema, which you'll have in South America as well, especially I'm sure that you've got it in Argentina and in Chile, and anywhere where you've planted grass seeds that might originate in New Zealand, because that is where it's called endophytes there. And it's a big problem, and we suspect that some of it comes across in the seed. So yeah, you can see these cows, we picked this up the day after the event happened, because it hits your herd very fast. The cows become very uncomfortable. They actually start photosynthesizing. So they're very uncomfortable. So that was a false heat that she showed. And then we were able to see that with the false heat, I could see that there was something else wrong with the cow, because their chewing time dropped and their rumination time dropped as well. You remember I said that if a cow's in heat, the chewing time shoots up. So we were able to get these cows out and treat the whole herd with zinc oxide quite quickly. It's the same with this cow. It was also at that same time, all on the same day, facial eczema event. But you can see the heat indicators work very well. So these are cows in the post-parlor that you saw after post-dairy, and this is where the supplements are. And that will be lucerne or alfalfa, and a African grass called Eragrostis tef, and apple and maize silage, and a bit of molasses and a bit of bicarb, and a bit of urea as well. So the results on the collars, on the FE collars that we've had, we've getting 10% more cows to calve this spring in 2021. 10%. So instead of calving down 550 cows, we're going to calve down 600 cows. And the most important thing is, in my mind, we use 20% less seeders, or we had to intervene 20% less of the time. So the cows came up naturally on heat. We were missing a lot of heats, specifically with the pedometers, even though we had fine-tuned them, because the problem, the challenge is on pastures, the cows walk very far and then they walk close, and they walk far and they walk close. So the FE collars have really, really worked well for us there. Our intercalving period is 385 days, which I'm very happy with. And we use 1.8 straws per pregnancy. So these are the cows out on pasture again, back to that mountain in the distance. And with forested areas on the northern side of our farm. And I thank you for your attention. Thanks.
Increíble, espectacular. Bienvenido, Cristian. Welcome, Nigel, y bienvenido, Gonzalo. El panel de debate es todo suyo.
Bueno, buenas tardes. Nigel, felicitaciones por tu testimonio, muy interesante lo que mostrabas sobre cómo usan tecnología y bueno, quería felicitarte por los logros que tuvieron.
Buenas tardes, Cristian. Buenas tardes a todos por estar. Hi, Nigel. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much also for being awake. It's too late for you, we know it. Congratulations on behalf of Cristian for the way you handle your facilities and for the achievements that you achieved based on your technology. Thank you.
Bueno, queríamos comenzar con una pregunta que tenía que ver con cuáles fueron las dudas o miedos que tuvo Nigel al momento de hacer la inversión y cambiar la forma en la cual venían haciendo las cosas. Si nos puede comentar un poco respecto a eso.
Nigel, we have, I'm not sure we are hearing you. Well, just please double check it. First questions from the crowd is, what were your concerns and the fears that you had the moment you decided to invest in technology and change the way you have been working until then?
Are you talking about the collars now recently, or the first technology we used with Afimilk 15 years ago?
Cristian, ¿te referís específicamente a los collares en los cuales invirtieron recientemente o a la primera tecnología que adoptó ya hace 15 años con Afimilk?
No, la pregunta se refiere fundamentalmente a las nuevas tecnologías que incorporó, pero apunta a comprender cómo es el proceso de adopción de tecnología que podría tener un productor que quiere hacer lo que él hizo, digamos, ¿no? O sea...
It's Nigel, just generally speaking, what do you think could be the normal process in the adoption of technology for any producer, and what do you think are the most common concerns and fears that any producer may face?
Well, I think that the tendency over the last 15 or 20 years, obviously, is for herds to get bigger. And then the challenge is to manage those herds properly. And what a lot of people have done all over the world is follow the New Zealand example of measuring on a herd basis what your average milk solids per cow per year and all that sort of stuff. And
one second, Nigel, please.
One
second for me to translate. Nigel nos dice que obviamente en los últimos 15 o 20 años la tendencia ha sido que los rodeos crezcan y sean cada vez más grandes, y por supuesto el desafío era manejar esos rodeos más grandes de manera adecuada. Lo que muchos productores hicieron alrededor del mundo es seguir la tendencia neozelandesa, que es manejar el rodeos o el rebaño justamente sobre la base del rebaño total. Yes.
So when you, like I said, the challenge is to manage cows, because cows are like people. Every single one's different. Some will be hard workers, some will be lazy, some will be very productive. So the challenge is to manage them as individuals. And my theory is, if you can't measure, you can't manage.
El razonamiento de Nigel es que las vacas son como las personas, son diferentes y cada una son diferentes entre sí, y cada una tiene sus particularidades. Hay vacas muy trabajadoras, hay vacas más vagas, hay vacas, tienen distintas particularidades, con lo cual el desafío es manejarlas de manera individual. Y su pensamiento es que si no se puede medir lo que ocurre, no se puede manejar.
So then based on what I've just said, it was a no-brainer for us to when the technology became available, and because I trust the Israeli technology, because I've worked in Israel many years ago, and to try to test it. And we started off with a scale, and then pedometers, and then milk meters, and then Affilabs, and now we've gone on to the collars.
Cuando tuvimos esta tecnología disponible no lo dudamos, porque confío en estas tecnologías israelíes, porque trabajé varios años en lecherías israelíes, con lo cual nos lanzamos primero a invertir en pesadores de leche, luego en los Affilabs, luego en los podómetros para detección de celo y medición de comportamiento animal, y ahora estamos trabajando con los collares.
Bueno, otra pregunta que el público quería hacer también es, ¿qué fue lo que generó en las personas que trabajan en su empresa al momento de que se adoptó la tecnología? O sea, ¿cómo recibieron las personas esas innovaciones tecnológicas, esas nuevas soluciones? ¿Y cómo les fue cambiando el trabajo? O si se tuvieron que capacitar, por ejemplo.
What was the reception of these technologies for your people? How they adapted to your technologies? What was the reaction?
Okay, that's quite interesting because, as you know, in South Africa, our labor force will generally be illiterate or uneducated, and there was and the popular conception is that they're not very clever because that's why they work on farms. So what the technology has done is it's made every single person who works on the farm a computer operator.
Normalmente la fuerza trabajadora en las lecherías sudafricanas no tenían un alto nivel de educación y lamentablemente la concepción general era que no eran personas muy inteligentes y esa es la razón por la cual trabajaban como operarios en las lecherías. Lo que la tecnología hizo con nosotros y con nuestro equipo es que cada uno de ellos se convirtiera en un técnico operario de sistemas.
So I think that, you know, it's been a real a thing with self-esteem for our staff as well, because they're operators. I mean, they're not laborers, they're operators, and they've built up a lot of knowledge together with us. And so I think one must never underestimate the intelligence of your staff, I think, and the institutional knowledge.
Creo que, por supuesto, nunca debemos subestimar la capacidad y las cualidades de nuestro personal. Creo que las tecnologías, yo siento que ayudaron mucho a la autoestima de nuestros trabajadores, que no son simplemente trabajadores, son operarios y muy buenos técnicos.
Perfecto. ¿Y tuvieron ya yendo a partes técnicas, tuvieron algún problema a la hora de desafiar a los animales en función del peso, de la condición corporal, de la leche corregida por grasa, o sea, pruebas que hicieron en la dieta y no funcionaron como pensaban? Y por otro lado, si tuvieron problemas con la tecnología en sí, si se les rompió algún aparato, se descalibró, algo que se pueda capitalizar de esa curva de aprendizaje que deben haber hecho, ¿no?
Coming into the technical questions and the learning curve that you face when you invest in these technologies, did you face any technical issues on the technologies, on the equipment you bought, some broken parts or broken systems? And on the other hand, did you face any problem when you challenge your cows the way you are doing by feeding them individually, by challenging them, analyzing the ECM and the corrections and the solids and so on?
Okay, well, firstly, there's a two-part question there. So in terms of the technology, most of it is plug and play nowadays. It's plug in and plug out. And so if you do have issues, it would generally be on the software, which is obviously, if you've got an internet connection, is fixed by some guy sitting in a little room in Israel. So that's not a problem for us at all.
Es una pregunta de dos partes, por supuesto. La primera, yendo a las tecnologías o a la parte técnica de los equipos. Casi todos los equipos son plug and play, se enchufan y salen andando, hablando en criollo. Si tenemos algunos desafíos técnicos, suelen estar en el lado del software, pero por supuesto que si uno tiene conexión a internet, esos problemas se resuelven y se corrigen con el equipo técnico de expertos en Israel, con lo cual desde ese punto de vista no hay mayores problemas.
In terms of challenging the cows with the way we feed them individually and feeding them to see how far we can take them, our cows under 130 days in milk are sitting at 7% of their body weight in ECM a day, which is a very high level. And we've had one cow that's produced 100,000 kilos of milk in her lifetime. And we've got a number that are sitting at 65, 70,000 now. So we're going to be having another cow doing that. So cows are like athletes, eh? The more you train them, the better they get.
Y respondiendo a la pregunta de si nos encontramos con algún desafío o con algún problema cuando desafiamos y tratamos de llevar a nuestras vacas a tan altos niveles, la realidad es que lo que yo veo en la práctica es que más les pido, más nos dan nuestros animales. Tenemos una vaca que ha producido 100.000 litros de leche en su vida y tenemos varios animales en 65.000 o 70.000 litros de leche en su vida.
Impresionante. Gonzalo, voy a empezar a hacer un pimponeo con preguntas que fue haciendo el público también. Acá una persona, Roberto Rubio, pregunta ¿cuántas personas trabajan en el establecimiento?
Some ping pong, some short questions for you, Nigel, from the crowd. First one, how many people do you have working for you in your farm?
We've got a total working staff of 26 people. And we've got 1,800 cattle on the farm.
26 personas. 26 personas trabajando.
Sorry, okay.
26 personas trabajando en nuestro staff, ordeñando 1.000 vacas y un total de 1.900 animales.
So of those people, about 12 of them will be ladies, and they do the milking. And most of the men will be outside, working outside.
12 personas de ese total de 26 personas en el staff son mujeres y todas ellas trabajan en el ordeño. La mayoría de los hombres trabajan afuera en el campo.
Bien, después Martín Valero nos pregunta que a partir de tan alta detección de celo, ¿cómo verifican la preñez lograda? Me imagino que tendrán un programa de tactos y bueno, ¿con qué frecuencia, con qué tecnología?
Nigel, what's the protocol that you use for preg check for checking the pregnancies based on the such a big value for heat detection that you get?
Yeah. Okay. So we get a vet in every 2 weeks, and we take out any cows over day 40 after insemination for preg check, and then we do a confirmed preg check at day 90. And we do a third preg check just before dry off.
Tenemos unas visitas de un veterinario 2 veces por semana. Hacemos un primer chequeo de preñez a los 40 días luego de inseminada la vaca, un segundo chequeo a los 90 días y un tercer chequeo durante el secado.
So just as interestingly, as the way we work is that the vet will come in the afternoon during milking time. So while the cows have been milked and they come in off the table, they will be sorted for the vet or not. So there's never a hold up. Cows aren't held up anywhere. The vet works them as they're being milked.
La manera en que lo hacemos con la tecnología es el veterinario suele venir por las tardes, en el ordeño de la tarde, y solamente revisamos las vacas que necesitan ser revisadas, separándolas automáticamente con la puerta de aparte automático.
Perfecto. Bueno, nos pregunta Mariela Radiccioni, ¿cuál es su aspiración y cuál es el mayor desafío que se le presenta para alcanzarlo?
What's your next goal and your major goal coming next? And what are the challenges that you believe you will face on the way?
Yeah, well, I mean, dairy farming is interesting in any country, just like life's interesting in Argentina. It's also interesting in South Africa. So there's one thing I've learned is there's always another challenge. No matter what you think you've accomplished, there's another challenge. My challenge at the moment, or what we are busy doing, is succession planning, because obviously I'm not the youngest guy in the room anymore. So we're busy doing succession planning, and my daughter is taking over the farm from me. So that's our big project that we're busy with now.
La lechería, ustedes bien saben que es muy interesante y no importa qué se haya logrado, siempre va a haber nuevos desafíos, y eso es así en Sudáfrica, en Argentina y en todos lados. Mi siguiente desafío es el plan de sucesión y es en lo que estoy trabajando. Mi hija es la que se va a hacer cargo de esta lechería, con lo cual en eso estoy trabajando.
Felicitaciones.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Comentarle que somos cuarta generación, así que entiendo muy bien de qué está hablando.
Cristian is 4th generation of dairy farmers in Argentina, so he understands very well what you're talking about.
Bueno, después Gonzalo Tentor nos pregunta a cuántos días es el pico de producción en el sistema que él tiene y qué promedio de leche hace en el pico y qué nivel de sólidos de leche hace en ese pico de producción con los animales.
When do you get, or how many days it takes to reach the peak yield in the lactation curve in your farm, and at what average yield and with how many solids?
Well, we work everything back to ECM. At the moment, our solids are, we're sitting at a 4.2% fat and a 3.45% protein. That's on Holsteins. Our average production per cow is about 8,700 kilos of milk a year. And we'll typically peak at about day 44. But what we notice is our body weight turns at just after day 41. So our body weight turns before our peak.
Típicamente estamos produciendo 8.600 litros por vaca por lactancia. Hacemos el pico al día 44 en promedio, con un porcentaje de sólidos de 4.2 de grasa y 3.45, si no me equivoco, de proteína, y siempre trabajamos sobre la base de leche corregida por energía, y vemos que nuestro score de condición corporal siempre cambia inmediatamente luego del pico de leche, del pico de producción. So, Nigel, did you mention what's the average yield at the peak?
The average yield at peak, you got me there. I can't remember it right offhand. It's late at night, but it's you know, I mean, it's oh no, you've got me.
Don't worry, never mind. No, le pregunté si se acordaba cuánto es el promedio de producción al pico, no se acuerda.
Sí. Después pregunta José Bernardo Perdomo Álvarez, aplicar alta tecnología implica una gran inversión. ¿Qué tiempo aproximado se requiere para recuperar esa inversión? En el caso de ellos, ¿qué números tienen en la cabeza que evaluar?
Adopting technology is typically an important investment. How much time it gets to the return of investment in average?
Well, when we put this technology in, I mean, I never look at the price of something. I look at what the payback time is. And typically the payback time on this sort of technology is about 3 years.
Típicamente yo nunca miro el precio cuando voy a invertir, sí miro el repago. Eso lo hago siempre, y típicamente para estos sistemas está dentro de los 3 años el repago en promedio para cualquiera de estas soluciones.
But very importantly, it has to be managed. This technology doesn't work by itself. It has to be managed.
Pero muy importante, hay que manejarlo. Ninguna de estas tecnologías funciona por sí sola, hay que manejarlo.
Perfecto. Después, Michelle Moreno pregunta que le interesa saber qué método utilizan para la reproducción y por qué. Yo me imagino que se refiere a qué protocolos usan, o sea, cuántos días liberan los animales, si usan IATF o no, si es todo por collares. Entiendo que debes referirse a eso.
What protocols do you use for reproduction, more particularly for insemination? Do you base your protocols in the collars? Do you sync your cows?
So what we do is we base everything on the collars. If a cow hasn't come on heat by day 90, or let's put it this way, if a cow hasn't shown heat by day 45, she'll come to the vet. So you can just check to see that she's clean. If she hasn't come on heat by day 90, we will then put her onto a CEDAR program, a synchronization program. But like I said, in the amount of CEDARs that we're using is far, far, far less than what we did before we put the collars on.
Basamos nuestro manejo reproductivo en los collares. Lo que hacemos es, si al día 45 una vaca no se presentó en celo, la llevamos al veterinario para confirmar que esté limpia. Luego, si al día 90 no ha presentado celo, se la mete en un programa de sincronización, pero como vimos en la presentación, la cantidad de CIDRs que usamos bajó tremendamente respecto a lo que solíamos hacer.
Perfecto. Nos pregunta Carlos Giraldo, ¿cuáles fueron los parámetros o los aspectos que tuvo en cuenta para adaptar el sistema tradicional que tenía antes, de ordeño tradicional, al nuevo sistema tecnificado que nos mostró en la presentación? O sea, ¿qué cuestiones tuvo en cuenta, digamos, no?
What factors did you consider? What do you think about the moment you switched from your conventional management to new management, so to call it, based on technology?
Well, I mean, it's quite a long time ago, but to be fair, I'm a first generation farmer. I started farming as a farm manager, and then after 15 years managed to buy a farm. So I've always been open to new things because I don't come from my grandfather didn't farm, so I haven't got that sort of problem. So I've always been open to new things, and I know that I'm not the very best stockman there is in the world. So I need technology to help me.
Esto fue hace mucho tiempo. Yo soy tercera generación de productores lecheros. Siempre comencé y siempre trabajé como un manager en la lechería. Puedo decirles que siempre estuve abierto a tecnologías, siempre tuve la mente abierta para adoptar lo que creía que fuera necesario, y puedo decirles que no considero ser el mejor gerenciador de rebaños, con lo cual siempre necesité tecnología para ayudarme.
Perfecto. Bueno, una pregunta que hace Luis Cortés, dice, ¿en qué desafío viene trabajando asociado al tema de cambio climático? ¿En qué cuestiones viene trabajando?
What are you working on referred to the climate change?
Okay, so climate change, I think climate's been changing since the day the Earth was made. That was quite a long time ago. So, but in terms of climate change now, we are going solar. We're just busy with a very big solar project because electricity is obviously quite a problem. And the way we farm with pastures is our carbon percentages in the soils have climbed from just under 2%. We're sitting at 6.5% now. So we are carbon sink. So we're actually doing the earth a big favor.
Creo que el cambio climático empezó a ocurrir desde el día que la Tierra se creó, pero bueno, actualmente lo que estamos haciendo, nos estamos enfocando, por supuesto, en consumo de energía. Cualquier lechería requiere bastante consumo de energía, y en términos de extracción de carbono, sí estamos viendo que hemos pasado de niveles de extracción del 2% a niveles del 6%, y estamos preocupados en ese aspecto.
Bueno, para ir cerrando el panel, la última pregunta es, ¿cómo se está preparando, digamos? Usted mostró, por ejemplo, que tiene un 10% más de vacas a parir en la primavera esta de 2021. ¿Cómo está preparándose para manejar el crecimiento que va a tener con indicadores tan buenos, digamos, ¿no? Que es un desafío cuando uno empieza a andar todo bien, empieza a crecer mucho más rápido, ¿va?
You showed us that you have 10% more cows to calve in the next spring. How are you preparing for that challenge? How are you preparing yourself for managing that growth?
Well, I'm a good South African. I get somebody else to do the work for me. No, it's a constant process. We do it every year. So we separate our dry cows out into cows in good condition, cows in poor condition. We feed the cows up in poor condition, and then we watch those cows very carefully when they're calving down. And I mean, some days we will be having 10, 12 heifers being born on the farm. So it's quite a challenge.
Como buen sudafricano siempre cuento con ayuda, y si sigo creciendo necesitaré más ayuda, pero puedo decirles que nos enfocamos mucho en el periodo de seca. Siempre separamos los grupos de vacas secas que no vienen, que las vemos subalimentadas, de las que vemos bien alimentadas. Nos enfocamos en las subalimentadas, trabajamos, y puedo decirles que estamos muy atentos a los días alrededor del parto. Hay días que tenemos 10, 12 terneros naciendo en el campo, pero lo miramos con mucho cuidado.
Bueno, Nigel, felicitaciones por el hermoso proyecto que tiene, por el desafío de la sucesión familiar con su hija, y Le agradecemos por la generosidad en compartir su experiencia y sus aciertos y errores.
Nigel, we thank you very much for your story, for sharing with us your success and your failures also. Congratulations for your projects, your beautiful project, and good luck in your succession plan with your daughter.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Muchas gracias. Gracias a todos por estar. Gracias, Inés.